People who depend on sheet music usually cannot improvise. Usually, these types of musicians cannot accompany a vocalist and usually struggle to learn the simplest of tunes. To master this piano lesson, you have to learn to hear and recognize intervals. If you do not have this ability, you will be forever chained to written music. Before I go any further, allow me to explain what an interval is. An interval is the distance between two notes. Intervals are always counted from the lower note to the higher note, with the lower note being counted as 1. Our Android application, Music Tutor, has the sole purpose of teaching a beginning piano enthusiast the technique of hearing intervals. Our application boasts a free play piano where the user can simply explore the beautiful sounds of the instrument and is guided as to the notes they are playing. Play along mode, where users will see intervals in motion through the use of scales and simple melodies, and training mode, where users are challenged to match notes to intervals that are played to them. At this moment, I will hand over to Alan, who will take us through our keyboard and play along mode.
Thank you, Trevor. Our free play keyboard here is a 3-octave keyboard, as you can see. We have different notes in here that are able to be played, each button, and they correspond to a regular keyboard. We have a section here in the middle that shows what keys are being played and disappears at a certain time. It's using a timer, handler, to make that happen here. Let me get this back up. The play along mode has different songs that will light up different keys when they need to be played. Mary Had a Little Lamb, for example, we can hit play and we'll start seeing the keys play, and the user could click on these and learn the song. This page uses a spinner as a drop down, and based on the index of the spinner, creates a track using the tracks and track class to play the song. We have Mary Had a Little Lamb and Frere Jacques. The tracks are basically sequential calls using time spans to play the certain note in a certain order. And so some will have longer time spans than others. That is basically how free play works. It's to help train the ear to hear the different notes being played. And now I'll give the control back over to Danny for training.
The training portion of the okay, I'm trying to get control here. Oh, there it is. The training is a tutoring / quizzing type mode. In the spinner up here, we have a number of difficulties, for example. As Trevor said, an interval is a distance between two keys. So a second or less is either two white keys with a black key between them, or two black keys with a white key between them. So if you want, what we can do here is when we hit the play button, we'll be presented with two notes. The first note will be highlighted and the second will not. And the second will be either above or below, and it will be in this mode no further than a second away from the initial note. So I'll go ahead and click play, and I heard the first note was an F, and I have to guess what the second note was. Devin, did that sound higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher? So I will try to make a guess that it might have been a G. And I answered correctly. So the next note it gave me was a G. And again, it was either higher or lower. I am going to guess deliberately incorrectly. I'm going to guess more than a second lower. And it told me that I'm wrong. And I can continue playing guesses. I'm not doing very well here. I managed to guess right once. Another time. And last time. And I got 3 out of 10 questions right. That's not very good. I obviously need a lot more training. So what this trains you to do is listen by ear to hear the distance between sounds and improve your playing ability based on that. We can play intervals of up to an octave or less. We can also quiz on the student's ability to play major and minor chords, major and minor scales, and even a blues scale. I'll go ahead and play a major chord real quick. A major chord is 3 notes. And I got that wrong. Anyway, I'll back out of that since rather than eat up the time just playing with the training. Behind the training Java, we have this activity, which constructs a track. For each question, it creates a series of questions, and for each question, it creates a track to play. It highlights, it specifically makes sure that one of the notes is highlighted, and then it uses a key event listener to detect what are the notes that the student plays. And depending on the student's answer, it determines if it's a good answer or not, and rewards the student accordingly. The other, also behind that is a Java class defining several note intervals. These are just a series of static functions. A note interval is defined as a strict integer distance between any 2 notes. So if you give it one note, that will automatically define what the intervals are, what the chords are constructed of intervals, and what scales are as well. And now I'll turn it over to Devin to finish talking about the piano GUI and the components that make that work.
Thanks, Danny. So there's 3 main parts to the piano GUI. The first is actual key rendering. So that's done by the piano GUI and the key button. So originally in Java, there's these resource files that are XML that describe the user interface. We originally built the piano using that format. However, we switched to a class which generates the UI components on the fly. The reason for that is different Android screens will have different resolutions, so we may be able to display more octaves on a tablet than on a phone. So the Piano GUI uses the key button Java to render the actual buttons, and the button extends a normal Android button, but it has a few extra properties for the key highlighting, so that it knows whether it should highlight as a key is or the sound is being played or not, and then also for rendering the red notes like C or F sharp on the keyboard. And then each button, when it's generated by Piano GUI, knows which octave and which note that button is assigned to, and also whether it's a black or a white key, so that it is able to render or play the correct sound when it's clicked. So you'll notice on the click event handler it will play a sound. So that's kind of self-contained. The button knows how to do its job on its own, and the Piano GUI is written to be reusable. So although we have many different activities inside of the Android app, each one, so play along and training and the main free play screen, all use the same Piano GUI class, just a different instance of it. So the Piano GUI uses the note intervals code that Danny talked about, and it loops through each possible note and generates the button instances and adds them to the current activity so they can be rendered. The final part is the timer code, and Android doesn't have a very good timer built into it. So originally we tried using threads to sleep for a certain amount of time, but based on that the notes would not play at the correct time because threading's not guaranteed. So instead we wrote our own timer, which is a lot more accurate. It doesn't work great in the emulator, but it works fine on a tablet. So it basically uses the nanoseconds and the internal clock and waits for a certain amount of time so it knows when to play a song. So that's the basics of the code. Does anyone else want to say anything before we're done?
Alright, judging from the way the application is built, it's clear to see how somebody who is a complete beginner to the piano, maybe has never done music theory, only hears things, it's clear to see how their ears can be trained to hear the distance between notes. And once you can hear the distance between notes, it's easy for you to pick up on the melodies. And then as you develop, you'll be able to come up with great solo lines on the keyboard. So this is our little application mini music tutor that is geared towards helping people who are considered musically daft initially to become music experts.